What is up, everybody? If you're watching this video, why? The fact is that, as the title goes, I don't know anything about the government. But I have been sort of like doing a little bit of research over it for like the past couple months, and I like to think that I have an idea a little bit about it. Now, a couple of disclaimers. Disclaimer number one: I'm not an expert, nor do I claim expertise, but I do like to think that like the little bit that I have figured out is not really that hard to explain. If you are somebody who has passed high school civics with a 200%, then this video is not for you. This video is clearly for people who still think that Joe Biden is the king of America. So, another disclaimer. At some point in this video, I'm going to cough. It's because I have a cold, not because of the pandemic. You're going to have to just bear with me on that. Another disclaimer. A lot of my videos are unedited, so you're going to get all my stuttering, all my stammering, all my rambling. You're going to get that. And, so yeah, there's that. If I knew how to edit, there would be like a little title thing after that. Just something that says, I don't know about the government. Bang, bang. Something. I don't know. But yeah, let's go ahead and get this road on the show. Starting with the phrase, the words, federal government. Now, if you ever like actually sat down and watched anything dealing with politics, you probably might have heard the phrase federal government a lot. And you probably might be thinking to yourself, well, the federal government is just a government. And you technically would be correct, but the federal government actually means multiple things. First off, there's a concept of the federal government, and then there's a context of a federal government. The concept of a federal government is ultimately a big government with smaller governments within it. So whenever you think of the concept of the federal government, think of like a high school where there's like a principal in charge of the school, and the teachers are in charge of the classrooms. See, like if you think of the teacher in the classrooms as states, and the principal as the president, kind of makes sense a little bit. At least I like to think that's how I imagine it in my head. So there, boom, you know it. Man, I hate having a cold. Next up, the context of the federal government. When you hear the words federal government in the news, it translates to the big government, the president, the Supreme Court, and and Congress. Now, these cats are the three ruling members of the three branches of American government, which is the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Judicial branch is ran by the Supreme Court. The legislative branch is ran by Congress, and the executive branch is ran by the president. All three of these branches have equal control over America, and they have a little something called checks and balances, so that one entity doesn't overstep and from other entities. The only problem is that like right now nobody's really showing their teeth at the Senate, because the Senate is the reason why a lot of stuff isn't getting passed. Yes, I will be biased in this. I can't explain the filibuster, so I'm not going to, but just know that if you have a question as to why everything kind of sucks in America, don't think that it's just the president's fault. It's ultimately the filibuster, and a lot of laws can't get passed because of the filibuster. Just look it up, man. It's like when you look into politics, you're going to see a lot of weird words like filibuster, gerrymandering, and those are the only two that I remember at the moment. Next up. Now the thing is that like the thing about America is that like America is too big for just these three branches by themselves to be in control of, which is why America is also divided into states. Every state has their own three branches of government as well. Every state has their own Supreme Court, it has their own Congress, and has their governor. Instead of the governor is ultimately the president of that state, which is why if you watch the news, you probably might hear about for example, Governor, I forgot his name. I think it began with an R. The governor of Florida. Man, I forgot that dude's name already. Forget it. Don't matter. But yeah, but it's like the thing is, the reason why you kind of want to get the hang of knowing exactly who your governor is and who your local, your state, your state legislative and stuff are, is because of the fact that while the national government, the national Congress, the federal government's Congress, is not really passing laws, your local government probably might be passing laws all the time. If you ever apply for a job and you see on your application, sign here only if you are applying in these states, or sign here if you're applying in Alaska or Maryland, California, blah blah blah, like that. Normally, that's because of local governments, establishing laws and or things within their states to do whatever it is that they do for the application process. So yeah, the local governments are actually much more powerful than the federal government is. Also, every 2 years is an election year, so you're gonna have to deal with that as well. It's not now the thing about checks and balances is ultimately like there's a whole complication between the three branches to make sure that like one entity doesn't step towards another one. Like for example, only the House can impeach the president. Like so, the House agrees that the president should be impeached, then that's the thing that should happen. The impeachment process is ultimately the equivalent of putting the president on trial. Believe it or not, if I'm not mistaken, I think you could do that with the governor of your state as well. I'm not sure. I think you can impeach your governor. I'm not sure. I don't know how that goes. State rules are mad different depending on what state you're living in. Let's see. What else is there? What else is there? Once again, I don't know about the government, which is why I'm just telling you the basic stuff that I do know. But yeah, like these are basic concepts. Every 2 years is an election year. If I'm not mistaken, House representatives can get elected every 2 years. The president every four. Senators every six. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that senators is one senator for every 2 years. I'm not sure, but it's like it's complicated. I don't really know how that goes as well. But not Nevada, Nebraska actually holds a weird record of not having both houses in their legislative branch. I think for them it's just the Senate, or is it the House? One of them. Without going too much into detail, the big reason why the legislative branch actually has two houses in it. There's the upper house, which is the Senate, and then there's the lower house, which is the House. And I think the reason why that actually is a big old cluster F word as it is ultimately because of something called the Kansas Nebraska Compromise. I think it's a Kansas Nebraska Compromise. I don't know. I forgot the name of it, and I'm too lazy to look right now. But the concept was that like when the states were being established, there was a question of representation, on the floor, because it's like, America is too big. America is now becoming states, so it's like, how do we, get to talk to people, talk to the person in charge, and one person suggested that it would be like two people from every state, get together and talk about whatever it is that they need to talk about, because that way, it's equal footing. And another person was like, do it by the size of the state. The problem is that like a lot of states are small, so it's like the smaller states probably wouldn't do that well in this kind of thing. So there was a whole bunch of debates or whatever, and then all of a sudden they just said, let's just combine the two ideas. So the size discussion became the House, and the two per state became the Senate. And the Senate is considered the upper house because the people there are much older. Really, the Constitution ultimately kind of determines these things as well. The very first and second part of the Constitution is the the establishment of Congress. So there's that. This is scattered as heck. I'll probably like do a little bit better with this next time, but I'm not going to really go too into detail about other stuff because once again I don't know about the government. But this is basically just the simple stuff. If this helped anyone, I'm glad. If not, I'm sorry. Thanks again. This is I don't know about the government. Do 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 do. If I knew how to edit, there would be a love and peace, everyone. God, we're getting so fat.